leave your mind running circles again, second guessing every word you said. Take a breath, reset your track. You don't need to hold yourself back. Stop overthinking, start connecting. Confidence maxing.
All right, welcome to another episode of Confidence Maxing Live. I'll let you in on a little inside baseball. So yesterday at 6:11 p.m., didn't know what I was going to talk about. Yesterday at 11 o'clock p.m., didn't know what I was going to talk about. This morning at 7 a.m., didn't know what I was going to talk about. This morning at 8:20, I knew what I was going to talk about. And so don't you just love it when a plan comes together? On the show today, what we're going to be discussing is, pull up my notes here. We're going to be discussing why you should counter-brainwash yourself. Okay, that's an interesting title. Let's see if the rest of the show lives up to it. So we'll start off with, I'll never be able to find it, but I saw this thing from, I think it was a reel from Gary Vaynerchuk of jab, 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 right hook fame. He said in this reel something along the lines, he was talking about how he treats his businesses, and if I'm remembering right, like the concept of, like, he's very visible. He does like something like 400 pieces of content sort of distributed per day. It's an insane amount. And he was talking about the detachment he has from all that he does online in his businesses. And he said basically something to the effect of, I'm so detached from it, people would be shocked. And I treat it like a game. And yeah, I've been thinking about that for a few days, because sometimes it can be really helpful to detach yourself from whatever you're trying to do. I saw something else last night about, now who knows if this is accurate, right? But it fits our purposes here. It was talking about Steph Curry. He doesn't say I missed a shot. He says that shot didn't go in. Like if he went for a 3-pointer and didn't happen to go in, and so getting a little detachment from whatever it is that you're trying to do, I think can be really helpful, because then you're not tying it up with your identity and who you are and what it all means about you and all those generally really unhelpful things. So next, and this is going to be a recurring theme today. So next, I've got a post from Justin Welsh, and he says, let me share my screen here. He says, don't get sucked in by the constant stream of nonsense online. Focus on what makes you, your family, your friends, and your community better. Brainwash yourself. And so as soon as I saw that, everything kind of clicked, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a really good idea. So there can be a danger of just constantly looking at, like think about news stories that upset you, or whatever it happens to be. Like you're just keyed into a bunch of stuff online, and it's not doing you any favors, right? Because in my opinion, humans were not meant to be exposed to so much, just a cascade of every possible piece of information available all the time, right in your pocket. That seems like a sort of a bad deal for people, and sort of a good deal for platforms and people who make money based on the attention their users give their sites, right? And this will be backed up even more with this post from Zuby. And if you don't follow Zuby, Zuby's an excellent follow on X. So Zuby says, taking everything you see on social media seriously is a great way to become mentally ill. I would agree with that. I would say that that is a fair a fair statement to make. I think about it in terms of, say 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago, or more. We were certainly in smaller communities than we are now, because in many respects, the community in, say, 1652, right? That community is going to be very, very small, 150, 200 people in many cases. Whereas our community, like what our brain would call our community, sure, it's the people that we live near and our neighbors and stuff like that, but the pseudo community of, the entire earth. Just because I can pick up this magic box in my pocket and view whatever's happening. And then personally, I don't think that our sort of our psyches or our bodies can even process that it is something halfway around the world, right? It treats it, or could be halfway around the world, could be halfway around the country. It treats it like it's something that's immediate at our doorstep that requires our attention. We got to monitor the situation and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you do too much of that, your worldview gets warped, where you might think, I can't, I can't do this or that because I'm supposed to feel bad about something I saw online. It's like, that is a losing strategy for life. And we all know, maybe some of our friends or friends' parents or whoever, that rants and raves about stuff on Facebook, and it's like, oh boy, I see that you're having a kind of a rough go of things. And so really important to keep things in perspective. Not everything needs your attention all the time. In fact, most things do not need your attention. So let's move on in the theme of imagining and focusing on helpful things rather than unhelpful things. That's a lot of what I talk about with my clients, especially early on, is we need to sort of divide things into what's helpful and what's not helpful. Things that are not helpful, we need to minimize the sort of the volume that we give those things, because on a long enough timeline, if you are constantly thinking unhelpful things or focusing on unhelpful things, that's not going to lead anywhere good. That's not going to improve your performance. That's not going to get you closer to where you ultimately want to be. And so it's really important to be really aware of what you're focusing on. So this next one, there we go. What we got here? Neuroscience news. Share my screen here. Your brain rewards you for imagining the future. So I thought this is pretty interesting because it kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about. Predicting the future is hard work. The author of the piece argues that we only do it because the act of finding a promising solution in our mind triggers an immediate internal reward. Just like a lab rat pressing a lever for food, our brain presses the mental time travel lever because it anticipates relief or success of a good plan. The dopamine connection, the theory predicts that frequent mental time travelers have more reactive mesolimbic dopamine systems, the brain's primary reward circuit. But the dark side, and this lines up perfectly with what we've been talking about, the dark side, when you catastrophize in depression or anxiety, this system can be co-opted. Instead of constructive planning, the brain projects negative past experiences into the future, creating a cycle of avoidance and safety behaviors. And so, simply put, if you're focused on, I mean, this could be pulled straight out of my book in some ways. If you're focused on situations and memories of the past when you did not perform up to expected, or you just didn't feel competent in the moment, if you're focused on those past situations and you're projecting that as a straight line into the future, like, oh, it's always going to be this way, this is just who I am, that is a problem. And I think similarly, if whatever you're consuming online that is unhelpful, then you're projecting that straight into the future of like, oh, things are never going to get better, things are always going to be messed up. Guess what? That's it. Much like I just think of like the old floppy disks, where you had read and write permissions, and this is universal among computers. Could be any IO that you put into a computer. It could be a flash drive or storage, whatever. Like you're not just giving content that you consume read only permission, where you're just going to read it. It's also going to write to your internal worldview. And so that's where the brainwashing part comes in, where everything is read write. And so you have to be really careful about what you're allowing in, because even if you have a pretty strong constitution and you're like, oh, okay, well, I understand that this is just a isolated incident and all that stuff, I think there's still some of that read write thing going on. And so we really have to be careful about that. So lastly, this article suggests that in psychotherapy should focus on retraining the brain to engage in constructive future thinking while halting the reward loop of negative projections. Now, I think that this is actually really key, because if we, there's, no matter what, there's some kind of payoff, right? Even if we're imagining like the worst case scenario, our brain might tell us, okay, well, I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting myself against whatever that worst case scenario is. And the reality is whatever that worst case scenario happens to be, it's always possible that, okay, it's good that you thought of the worst case scenario, but here's the thing, at least in my experience talking with clients, that worst case scenario basically never happens, because it's not a realistic worst case scenario. It's just a worst case scenario, like the SWAT team comes in, or whatever, like, craziness, right? It's much more constructive, I think, to allow yourself sort of limited windows to think of realistic worst case scenarios. Now, you might think of a worst case scenario, then the next question would be, okay, well, is that likely? Is it accurate? What is a more realistic negative outcome? Realistic, right? Odds are, it's not that worst case catastrophizing thing that happens. And on the flip side, if we're thinking, if we're just keyed in a little bit more on things that could go right, I think that's really important, because it focuses us on the upside. And if you thought of, if you say you were heading into a really important meeting, and on one hand, you could think of every time that you've been in a meeting and things haven't gone exactly how you wanted. You could think of that. On the flip side, you could think of every time that a meeting has gone well. Or you could think about how people in the room want you to do well and things along those lines. Now, of door A and door B there, which one's going to help improve your performance? The second door, right? Because you're thinking about things that could go right instead of things that could go wrong. In my book, I liken it to if you were driving in a car and you thought of every near miss or every screw up you had behind the wheel, every curb check, every near fiery crash. That's not. Please don't think of that. It's going to be a problem, right? It's much better to think of like either neutral, like, hey, I'm not even thinking about it, or okay, here's when things went right. I arrived at a location safely, whatever it happens to be. And so focusing on your own area of competence, incredibly important. It's just incredibly important. So we're going to switch over to the whiteboard here. And I do release this live stream as a podcast on podcast platforms. And so there is a visual component here right now to the whiteboard. So if you're listening on podcast, the video is obviously going to be better because you'll be able to see me and the whiteboard and all that. But I'll also describe what I'm showing you here as well. So this is from a series I did a little while ago, Whiteboard Micro Lessons, and you may not be familiar with it, so I'm going to recover what I covered on this whiteboard micro lesson because I think it links up perfectly with what we've been talking about. So the overall concept is your brain is a search engine. Your brain is a search engine. And there's a someone I mentioned in my book, Rick Hansen, PhD. He has a really he has a saying that I like, and I'll paraphrase it here, where positive experiences are like Teflon and negative experiences like Velcro. When talking about the sort of the stickiness of what gets captured in your brain that you can recall later. Guess what? Those negative experiences, that one awkward moment, that one joke that didn't land, that's Velcro. The the 98 times when things went well, or things just didn't go poorly, just things were kind of neutral. Guess what? That's like Teflon. Oh, that's just the standard. It should always be like that. Whatever you say to yourself. And so we really need to key in on during the research in this part of my book. There was a study that suggested that we have around 6,000 thoughts per day. It's a lot of thoughts. And say that, we're guessing here, but say 80% of those thoughts, because we know that the negativity bias is a real thing. Say that 80% of those thoughts were sort of negative in nature, right? Oh, I want to avoid this. This is not good. This is not good. So you have 4,800 thoughts that aren't helpful. And then you have 1,200 thoughts that are helpful, 20%. Then the total available pool of thoughts is an 80-20 split between things that are helpful versus things that are not helpful. And so you have a pretty big split there. And when your brain, when you're just thinking of past experiences, your brain is pulling from the total available experiences that it can remember. And so if it can more easily recall the 80% of less than positive experiences, and it has a 20% chance of recalling those experiences that were good, guess what? You're going to end up with more negative experiences being recalled at a later time. So how do you counteract this? How do you go about a little light brainwashing? So in my mind, the very first step is, and especially talking about like your own individual performance. Again, what I help people with is communication skills, and so that's where I spend the majority of my thoughts and reasoning. You have to document and record times when things were going well, and recording wins, recording positive thoughts, because we know our dichotomy here is Teflon versus Velcro. I would say at a minimum, we need like a 2-to-1 ratio, two wins for every negative experience. Ideally, I would tell you the same thing I would tell my clients, like, just don't even think. You will automatically think of the negative experiences, but over time, if you spend a fair amount of effort, I almost said a lot, but it's not. I wouldn't even say it's a lot. It's just getting in a new pattern. You spend more time focusing on recording situations and instances where you were successful. You start to crowd out those negative thoughts and negative experiences and negative memories and all that kind of stuff. As Scott Adams said, reduce the shelf life you give to the bad thoughts. And so I think the practical way you do that is, like he says, shelf life. I would add on to that the shelf space. The shelf space you give bad thoughts. So what flows from that? Well, probably more experiences, right? So if you're not having a whole lot of positive experiences, seek out small positive experiences. Might be going to a new place and working from a coffee shop for the afternoon. Might be researching and joining a class in your community that you're excited about, and that has the side benefit of, guess what? You're probably not checking your social media of choice and getting some level of outraged over this, that, or the other. Instead, you're focusing on like, hey, these are people in my community. This is my neighbor. This is, whatever happens to be. And you're, over time, I think what you'll probably also find is you start to develop a little bit more meaning, because you can be more useful in your sphere of influence. Now, that could be your community, could be your city, could be your neighborhood, whatever it might be. Could just be like the community of the people that you hang out with. Like if you're a member of a running club, you like it, and so you go a bunch, then you start to volunteer at some of the events and the races, whatever it happens to be. Then you're getting meaning because you're being useful and you're being helpful, which I think is the recipe for a good life. So I'd be curious what you think of this. I think we can probably agree that humans aren't particularly well engineered for seeing every possible version of things that would upset us online, from anywhere from 100 to 6,000 miles away, right? So I think the best we can do is know that our brain is a search engine, that there are also read-write permissions with everything that we consume. And so we start to be more intentional about the things we consume, and more intentional about seeking out positive experiences to reduce the shelf space that we give negative experiences. All in service, like really the goal. And it's okay to be selfish with the goal up to a point where the goal is just to have a better life, just a better life for you in terms of what you think about all day, and what you're ultimately, the downstream effect is what you're able to do in your, could be with your family, could be with your friends, could be with your community, whatever it happens to be. If you're dialed in mentally, you're strategically consuming things and strategically not consuming things as well. You're able to give more of yourself in different situations that are probably more helpful, right? They're probably more helpful. And you probably, as a ultimate downstream effect, you'll probably derive more meaning and you'll increase your life satisfaction. And so my tip for today is counter-brainwash yourself, because everything out there is in big ways and small ways brainwashing you slightly. And so we have to be really thoughtful about how we're exerting control over our own sort of attention. That's all I got for you today. If you want more of this kind of stuff, especially when it comes to like improving your communication skills and your, documenting wins and focusing on competence that leads to confidence, guess what? There's a book for that. It's called Confidence Maxing. I like it. The readers like it. Everybody likes it. And so I would tell you, check out that book. It's available on Amazon, available on audiobook as well. I'm an audiobook person. And so I think the audiobook, I did not narrate it. Very talented voice actor by the name of Lyle Blaker narrated it, and he did a fantastic job. I was riveted by my own book, which is crazy because by the time I was reviewing the if you've never published a book and you never published an audiobook, they send you chapters so that you can review if there's anything they need to re-record. And in some of the chapters, I was riveted by a book that I had not only written, that I had not only edited. At that point, I was a little sick of my own book, but the way he delivered it, especially my favorite's the storytelling chapter. It was really good, really, really good. So if you're so inclined, check it out. I would love for you to read that book and get some value and benefit out of it. And other than that, I will talk to you tomorrow, and I think you know what's going to happen next. It's the jingle that will earworm its way into your brain, and you'll be humming it while you're doing the dishes. That's going to play us out, and then I will see you tomorrow.
If your mind's running circles again, second guessing every word you said, take a breath, reset your track. You don't need to hold yourself back.